إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في السور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيء ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتاز اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أحد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد ضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تأكلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكذبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مزيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننقصه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Please recite Surah Fatiha for all our Ameen al-Fatiha.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. کہنے لگے امیر کے فرماتی ہو یہ کیا، وہ بولی آج خواب میں آئے تھے مصطفیٰ، مجھ کو لگا کے گلے روئے خوب سا، اور یہ کہا کہ اے میری بیٹی تو غم نہ خا، اب بے کسوں کی طرح سب کو تو روئے گی، کل اے بطول پاس ہمارے تو ہوئے گی، سو آج بعد ظہر میری ہوئے گی قضا، ہے آخری یہ میری وصیت سنو ذرا، جس نے شکستہ پہلوے زہرا کو ہے کیا، اس کات حمل جس نے کیا ہے بطول کا، ان کو میرے جنازے پر آنے نہ دیجیو، تابوت کو بھی ہاتھ لگانے نہ دیجیو، اور دوسری یہ عرض ہے اے شاہ لافتہ، ہے فضل کردگار سے نام آپ کا برا، دن کو اگر جنازہ اٹھے گا بطول کا، تم کو سنا سنا کے یہ بولیں گے اشقیاء، تکلیف سے ہمیشہ کی جسے گزر گئی، آخر بطول فاقے کشی کر کے مر گئی، تانا یہ مجھ کو دیوے گے جس وقت اشقیاء، واللہ میری روح کو ہوگا کلک برا، سو ہے چلا ہے وقت یہ اے شاہ لافتہ، جس دم نصیب ہوئے مجھے وصل کبریا، مردہ بھی غیر کو نہ دکھانا بطول کا، تابوت نصف شب کو اٹھانا بطول کا، یہ سن کے روئے خوب شہنشاہ لافتہ، یاد آئی میری دائی ناموس مصطفیٰ، بولے کہ تم کو غیروں سے ہے اس قدر حیا، جو چاہتی ہو دیکھے جنازہ نہ وہ تیرا، کیا کیا نہ رنج زینب و کلثوم پائیں گی، سرننگی ایک روز یہ بلوے میں جائے گی، اس گفتگو سے اور بھی محشر ہوا عیا، بیٹوں سے پھر بطول نے رو کر کیا بیان، پیارو ہمیشہ جیتی نہیں ہے کسی کی ماں، سوچو تم اپنے دل میں کہ نانا گیا کہاں، اما نثار خاک نہ سر پر اڑائیو، مر جائے گر بطول تو تم غم نہ کھائیو، محمد و آل محمد صلوات اللہم صلی پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تو ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، کیا حال یہ امت نے زہرا کا بنایا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، ہر خاتون کوئی غم سے یوں چور نہیں دیکھی، ایسی کوئی دنیا میں مستور نہیں دیکھی، 18 برس میں ہی لگتی جو ضعیفہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، دربار میں ظالم نے کی ایسی پذیرائی، کس طرح سے تو بی پھر لوٹ کے گھر آئی، بالوں کی سفیدی نے سب حال سنایا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، تو روتی رہی گھر میں حیدر سے بھی چھپ چھپ کے، عصمت کی طرح دکھ بھی پردے میں رہے تیرے، اور کچھ درد تیرے بھی ہے، بس جانتی فضا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، دو ایسے جنازے ہیں تاریکی میں جو اٹھے، دو ایسے جنازے ہیں تاریکی میں جو اٹھے، بس گھر کے ہی لوگوں نے دونوں کو دیے کاندھے، ایک فاطمہ زہرا ہے، ایک بالی سکینہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، مرہم تیرے زخموں کا بی نہ ملا اب تک، اولاد امیہ کی باقی ہے جفا اب تک، رونے پہ بھی پہرا تھا، تربت بھی پہرا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، مسمار تیرا روزہ امت نے کیا جب سے، بابا تیرا رہتا ہے تربت پہ تیری تب سے، کب گنبد خضرا میں بابا تیرا رہتا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، مہدی سے کوئی پوچھے کیا اس پہ گزرتی ہے، آواز بقیہ سے جب رونے کی آتی ہے، آنکھوں سے لہو رو کر وہ بھی یہی کہتا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ تصویر حقیقت کی خوابوں کو بنا دیجئے، تصویر حقیقت کی خوابوں کو بنا دیجئے، اے بی بی تکلم کو تعبیر دکھا دیجئے، ماتم تیری تربت پہ ہوتے ہوئے دیکھا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ کیا حال یہ امت نے زہرا کا بنایا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Can you please recite 5 times Amma Yujib for all those who are not feeling well? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. عما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 عما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Can you please ask for a Fatiha for all المرحومين سورة المباركة الفاتحة. Please invite Brother Sadiq Damani to the member to allow Dar Salawat. Bar Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad Salawat.
Before we begin, if we can remember a dear alim whose work yesterday, I forgot to mention, our discussion yesterday was based on his work, which was Marhum Ayatollah Sayyid Familial, who many of you will be familiar with. May Allah grant him an elevated status. And today, inshallah, we'll also be using the works of some of our past scholars as well, including Ayatollah Mirza Jawad Tabrizi, may Allah elevate his status, and also Shaykh Al-Fan, who many of you will know, and may Allah continue to grant him tawfiq in his endeavors, in his work for our community. Inshallah, we can gift a Surah Al-Fatiha for all of their souls, their family souls, and for all of those here present and those who have no one to make dua for them. Rahimallahu man qara'a Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المذمومين واللعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. وصلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا لثارات الحسين يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى. My dearest brothers, sisters, my elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. We continue our journey of looking at the overriding theme of the solution is Sayyid Zahra salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajal. And I hope you're starting to get a feel for what the objective was over these 5 nights that Allah, well, He's given us 4 thus far. Inshallah, we'll have a 5th one tomorrow. And that was to try and really get our community looking through a very consistent lens, which is the lens of Tawheed, and that is the lens that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, without any shadow of a doubt, assessed every situation that they were in. And today we want to continue with that. But tonight I would like to try and illustrate to you just how pure this lens is. Just how pure the lady is that is also looking through this lens, and therefore how pure her lineage is, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises in the Quran to Rasulullah in Surah Al-Kawthar. And hence we want to look at this extremely, extremely powerful ziyarah. A ziyarah that Ayatollah Wahid al-Khurasani, may Allah grant him a long life in his service, inshaAllah. He says in his discussion on ziyarah to Ashura, the veracity of the content of this ziyarah is so strong that I don't even need to go towards the chain of the narrators to validate it. Ayatollah Wahid, we're not just talking about an average alim, talking someone in his 103, 104 years old. One of the most senior students of Sayyid al-Khou'i, may Allah grace his soul. So you're wondering what an azamah this ziyarah has. No wonder why the Shia of Alim Muhammad, when they have their kafan, they try and get one that has some kind of writing of ziyarah to Ashura on it. And we want to focus tonight, given that we're in Fatimiyyah, on this line that you can see on the screen. Assalamu alayka yabna Fatima sayyidatin nisa'il alameen. And we're going to look at a spiritually inspired familial analysis. That's probably the longest and weirdest sentence you may have seen in a long time. A spiritually inspired analysis based on the family links within this sentence. And inshallah, once we unpack it, you'll see how that applies to our families as well. And if you'd like to go on this journey, kindly offer a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In Ziyarat Ashura, we begin the ziyarah. I think the clicker battery may have just passed away. Maybe have to recite Fatiha for the clicker battery, perhaps. Inshallah. It's not working. I think the brother in there. Oh, there we go. Now we've got it back. Alhamdulillah. Okay, wonderful. In the initial parts of Ziyarat Ashura, we start by saying Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, which we've discussed a few times in the last 2 nights. Then there is the next section of the ziyarah, where there's a repetition of this concept of Ya Ibn. Assalamu alayka yabna Rasulillah, yabna Amirul Mu'mineen, yabna Fatima. And Shaykh Al-Fan takes a moment here to really zoom in on what is this yabna. Most of us will just look at this and say, this means, oh, son of, right? Yani biologically it's true in 2 cases. One perhaps is poetic in that of Rasulullah, but we see him say many times that Hassan and Hussein, they are my sons. And in other cases, yes, they are my grandsons as well. But Shaykh Al-Fan pays and the Mufassirin pay very, very, very close attention to this Ya Ibn. Why? It's not just son of. It's not. Ibn, etymologically, means something that is the product of something else. It is the result of something else. Al-Ibn, if you learn the word in Arabic, binaya, building, the root of that is Ibn. I.e., this person has built something. Assalamu alayka, oh, the thing that Zahra has built, which is Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa jaffa. Those of you who are parents, you know you make many decisions prior perhaps to even conceiving. during the upbringing of your child, during pregnancy, during upbringing, even whilst they get into adolescent years, you're making these subtle decisions around them to nurture this individual to be someone that is inshallah tawheedi, someone that is inshallah going to be a thawab jariyah for you. They become something that you've invested in, you've put foundations in for, and hopefully they become an ibn for you, a product of you, an edifice of you, a result of all of your effects. And we see in some of the discussions from Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam where he tells us that if you have any good trait in you, point towards your father. And of course we see the Holy Prophet telling that man, your mother, your mother, your mother, and then your father. And again, I go back to night one, our discussion on isms. Why are we running away from motherhood so much? Why are we running away from fatherhood so much? To pursue a career? I didn't see the Prophet say, with you is your career, with you is your career, with you is your career. I saw something very different from him. One is capitalist, one is tawheedi. One is socialist, one is tawheedi. We need to clarify that lens, and I hope that's done. So we want to now ask the question, if Ziyarat Ashura is saying, Assalamu alayka, yabna Fatima, and we say, okay, there's a biological link to Imam Hussein, but what does Imam al-Hussein inherit from Sayyidat an-Nisa al-Alamin? And the same discussion happens in the other verses, but obviously tonight we're focusing on this. The first thing that we see that Imam al-Hussein inherits from Sayyidah Zahra, and sorry, today's going to be very text heavy, very literary heavy, so those of you who enjoy analyzing literature, here you go. For those who don't, enjoy your snooze, and we'll see you in 50 minutes, inshallah. First thing is that we see in a ziyarah of the Holy Prophet, where within it we address Sayyidah Zahra. And we say, Allahumma salli ala Fatima at-Tayyibah. In blue, you can see the word at-Tayyibah. We're going to be paying attention to this line for a few minutes. Oh Allah, bless Fatima the Tayyibah, which we can loosely translate to being the pleasant one. Now, what was the logic that we established? We said that this is the mother and she has nurtured this son. Therefore, there are some traits that go from the mother to the son. Sayyidah Zahra at-Tayyibah. What about Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam? In the riwayah that you can see at the bottom, we see that a man comes to Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ajif farajah. And he says, قلت لأبي عبد الله, I said to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, أزور قبر الحسين, that I visit the grave of Hussein alayhi salam. To which Imam al-Sadiq replies, قال نعم, yes. زور الطيب, go and visit the Tayyib one. وَأَتِمَّ الصَّلَاةِ فِي, and pray the complete prayer there. This is one of the narrations we get about praying a full salah if you are close enough to the Dariyah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But look, the Imam could have just said, yes, na'am, زور al-Hussein, or زور جدي, visit Hussein, visit my grandfather, زور Sayyid al-Shuhada. But he makes the point here to say this isn't just anyone, this is a-Tayyib, inherited ibn from الطيبة الزهراء صلوات الله وسلامه عليها. اللهم صل على محمد. Remember, these aren't coincidences. If you have real understanding of Imam, you know that the words of the Imam, they're nothing except absolute wisdom. As the Quran tells us about Rasulullah, إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى. It is nothing except revelation. It is nothing except perfection. It is nothing except what we must know. There was no desire within them that they acted upon. It was all qurbatan ilallah ta'ala. So when the Imam says tayyib, he means tayyib. When the Prophet says tayyib, he means tayyib. What does it mean? The root meaning of at-tayyib is that which by the senses take pleasure and the soul takes pleasure in as well. Find me a person when they learn about the likes of Amir al-Mu'mineen or Sayyidah Zahra and they find themselves distracted, repelled from them. If they're a Nasibi, sure, but a logical, aqli person, when they assess the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Sayyidah Zahra, there's only but attraction and attraction and attraction. At-Tayyib is something that you are attracted to, your senses and also your soul. We now go back to this first part of that ziyarah, or this first line you can see on the screen. Allahumma salli ala Fatima. And how is it addressed? At-Tayyibah we've just looked at. But then the next part is there, At-Tahira al-Mutahhara. What's the difference between the two? Tayyib is something pleasant. Tahir is something pure. The book of Tahara that we learn about in fiqh. So now Sayyid Zahra is being called a Tahira. What about Sayyid al-Shuhada? In another narration where a man comes to Imam Sadiq, says, may I be at your ransom? Should I visit the grave of Hussein alayhi salam? The Imam replies saying, Na'am ya Aba Sa'id. A'ti qabr al-Husayn ibn Rasulullah. And go and visit the grave of Hussein, the son of Rasulullah. Atyab al-Atyabin. So he goes back to the first one again. This is the most pleasant of the pleasant. Wa athhar al-Tahirin. Again, we remember the Imam is doing this deliberately. Why is he not just emphasizing one of them? In fact, he double emphasizes each of them. The most pleasant of the most pleasant ones, and the most pure of the most pure ones, and the most righteous of the most righteous ones. For surely if you visit him, Allah will write you the reward of 25 hajjs. Where does he get this from? Spiritually? Al-Tahira. Al-Tayyiba. His mother Zahra salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa shafir. But now we need to validate this transfer of purity from one pure soul to another pure soul. Do we find that in our literature to support it? For those of you who know Ziyara Jama'a Kabira, and if you do not, I really recommend Ziyara Jama'a Kabira. In fact, forget me. What am I? Sayyid Sistani highly recommends Ziyara Jama'a alongside Ziyarat Ashura. Many of us, unfortunately, don't know Ziyara Jama'a. I remember one of the scholars in Qom, he said to us, he goes, if you want to know the cheat sheet, that's the, how to fly towards the heavens. He said, what you need to do is you need to go somewhere like the Haram of Sayyidina Ma'asuma, the Haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen, or any of the blessed shrines. May Allah grant us our visitation to them, inshallah. He said, usually go around 2-3 a.m. because that's when the big dons come out. Us lot are sleeping. These lot are getting up. And go into the Haram and find one of the mujtahideen or one of the big ulama that you recognize. Obviously, if you're in the hawza, you'll know who to look out for. He said, just go and stand behind them and check which dua that they're reading. He said, you'll be surprised how many of them are reading Ziyara Jama'a every single day. Ziyarat Ashura is a classic, but Ziyara Jama'a has a special maqam. And if your yaqeen in imamah is weak, the ziyarah will rattle you. And that is why many people start to panic when they start to read some of it. But this is nothing but kalam of haqq. Imam al-Hadi, something that we don't know anything about, he is the author of this ziyarah. So then when you go to Samarra, make sure you recite the ziyarah and gift that ziyarah to him. What does he say? He says, وَأَنَّ أَرْوَاحَكُمْ وَنُورَكُمْ وَطِيبَتَكُمْ وَاحِدَةً طَابَتْ وَطَهَرَتْ بَعْضَهَا min ba'd. What a line. And that your spirits and your lights and your nature are one. They became pleasant and purified, some from others. There is a transfer of this purity. You can't just get it from nowhere. The Prophet then also makes it clear in a narration that one thing that is tayyib has to be, or something that's tayyib has to have received that tayyibness from another thing that was tayyib. Because he says, and Allah did not allow to produce from a pleasant entity save a pleasant entity. فَأَبَى أَن يُخْرِجَ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ إِلَى الطَّيِّبِ. So how does Imam al-Hussein get known as being أطيب الأطيبين? He must have received that purity from Az-Zahra. You start to see how much of a pinnacle role that Sayyid Zahra actually plays in this whole construct of imamah, just from looking at it from a perspective of purity. Where is it coming from? Amir al-Mu'mineen tells to Kumail the hadith that he heard from Nabi al-A'zam Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Pay very close attention to this one. Like I said, if you're not into literature, you're going to miss out. For those of you who are, enjoy the ride. The Holy Prophet's reward say, Aliyun minni. Ali is from me. Wa abnaya minhu. And my two sons are from him. Wa tayyibun. Who are the tayyibun? A tayyibun we also use for the A'imma alayhim salam. Wa tayyibun minni. And the A'imma are from me. Wa ana minhum. There's the togetherness. وَهُمُ الطَّيِّبُونَ بَعْدَ أُمِّهِمْ. And they are the طَيِّبُون after their mother, Zahra salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. This is one of those discussions where there's a lot of salawat and it keeps our soul moving. Inshallah, we can continue to fragrance it and we can gift this next salawat to all of our marhumeen, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant the visitation of Zahra into their graves. Aflaha man salla ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. وهم الطيبون بعد أمهم, and they are tayyibun, pleasant ones, after their mother. وهم سفينة, and they are the ark. من ركبها نجا, and whoever boards that, they will have salvation. ومن تخلف عنها هوا, and whoever lags behind falls. Again, I go back to night one. Which ship are you trying to get on? The ship of the feminists and the guys who, like, I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm sure you know which YouTubers I'm thinking about. Either, sure, go and buy their fancy drinks and go and get on their fancy cars and boats and their whatever. But you know you're going to be gharaq, as the hadith tells us. You're going to be drowned. Or you get on the ship of salvation. That no matter how much wrong we've done in that given year, we are still invited back to the majalis of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. We've all been there. We've had a spiritual dip. We've done the worst of sins. Yet Allah bestowed that favor on us to say, come back to the majalis of at-tayyibun. I'm giving you another opportunity to get on the ark. And I always think about that. When Hur has this opportunity in his last moments for his imam to come and greet him, because he kept attending to the majlis, the attendance, the sitting with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And may we be granted that same visitation by our Imam. وَهُمْ سَفِينَ مَنْ رَكِبَهَا نَجَا وَمَنْ تَخَلَّفَ عَنْهَا هَوَى. So we need to make a choice. Are we getting on the purest ship, or are we settling for something far, far, far inferior? Now we open up another discussion about this Zahra alayha salam, being the Ibn, Hussein being the Ibn of her. What else does he inherit from her aside, as if it's not enough, of this purity and this perfection? To answer this, we need to go and look at why Rasulullah, and why did Allah and thy Rasulullah name Fatima Fatima. Once we understand that, we'll see, does Hussein inherit anything from there? We know that these individuals were named with absolute wisdom and by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what happens? The Holy Prophet said to Sayyida Zahra in front of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Fatima, Atadrina lima summiyat Fatima. Oh Fatima, do you know why you were named Fatima? Imam Ali alayhi salam says, Ya Rasulullah, why was she named Fatima? فقال علي, Ya Rasulullah, lima summiyat. Why? Because قال لأنها فطمت هي وشيعتها من النار. Because her and her Shi'as are detached from the hellfire. Now you look to the Holy Prophet, he also says, إِنَّ سُمِّيَتْ ابْنَتِي فَاطِمَةً لَأَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ فَطَمَهَا وَفَطَمَ مَنْ أَحَبَّهَا مِنَ النَّارِ. Indeed, I named my daughter Fatima because Allah, the Invincible and the Exalted, detached her and those who love her from the hellfire. Then you go and look to Imam Hussein. Does he, as the Ibn, as the product, as the edifice, does he inherit this same trait from his mother? Imam Asad reported, say, Man ata qabra Abi Abdullah. Whoever goes and visits the grave of Aba Abdullah, faqad wasala Rasulallahi wa wasalana, and has indeed established and connected with the Messenger of Allah as well as us. وَحَرُمَتْ غِيبَتُهُ, and backbiting him is forbidden. وَحَرُمَ لَحْمُهُ عَلَى النَّارِ, and his flesh is forbidden from the hellfire as well. Where does he get it from? From his mother. Assalamu alayka yabna Fatima Sayyidat an-Nisa al-Alamin. Then there's a whole discussion about Sayyidat an-Nisa al-Alamin and the siyada that she has and the siyada that Aba Abdullah Hussein has. When you unpack the ziyarat, you realize this is why Ayatul Wahid says I don't even need to look into the sanad of this, because whoever wrote this is an absolute genius. But if you want to be intellectually arrogant, sure, go and play that game against the thousands of years of scholarship. So khalas, is that all it takes? Ziyarah once a year, ziyarah once in our life, attending majlis, claiming that I love and we're good? Unfortunately, that's not enough. Why? Because the Quran sets out a very important principle. قُلْ إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني. Say, if you love Allah, then you got to follow me. There is a linked principle here that the Quran establishes. Love comes with fellowship. And if you have that fellowship and that obedience, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمْ اللَّهُ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you. وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبُكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And Allah is going to forgive your sins, and He is all forgiving and all merciful. So if you simply take that approach of just saying, yeah, Shia Zahra, back to that thing we said the other night, it's on the Instagram, it's all there, I've got the bracelet, I've got this, I've gone to Karbala, it's on my WhatsApp status. It's not enough. There needs to be a level of followership. And realistically, if you love someone, truly, you listen, you follow, you respect. Imam al-Baqir tells us, وَهِدْ دِينْ إِلَّا الْحُبِّ. And is deen anything except love? And if love is followership, what did we say the intellect was designed for? Obedience. Obedience to what? To the commands of Allah. The command of Allah says, أطيع الله, أطيع الرسول, وأولي الأمر منكم. Go and obey Allah, go and obey the messenger, and go and obey those in authority from amongst you. It's all about obedience and love. That's the whole essence of this faith. Does Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam get afforded a similar concept as well? We see that the Holy Prophet says, "Man ahabbana ahl al-bayt hasharahu Allahu aminan yawm al-qiyamah." Whoever loves us, the Ahl al-Bayt, Allah would raise him in the state of amina, of protection, on the Day of Judgment. Love without fellowship is nothing. Absolutely nothing. And this is where I want to open up a book by Ayatollah Mirza Jawad Tabrizi. Many of you may know him as one of our most senior ulama in recent years, and we try and find this page inshallah by offering a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He's asked, does the mere love of Ahlul Bayt and hatred of their enemies benefit a person if it does not push him towards worship and action? He replies, in the name of Allah, the love of Ahlul Bayt, following them and seeking their proximity are all obligations incumbent on every person based on the Quranic designations and the Sunnah. And whoever contains hatred towards them is considered outside of Islam. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam ordered us not to rely on their love in a way that makes us heedless of not taking action. Therefore, what is falsely claimed about the Shia in regards to them entirely relying on their belief in the guardianship, the wilayah of the Imams, and refraining from taking any action is a false accusation. As for the penalty for those who love them, yet do not perform good deeds or commit misdeeds, it is to be determined by Allah. Hopefully, good things will befall them because of the good that they did, that is loving and following them. Moreover, Allah's mercy and the intercession of His Prophet and His pure household may embrace him. And perhaps the narrated hadith, quote hadith, the love of Ali is a good deed and with which no misdeed can cause harm, end hadith, refers to this origin, yet it does not imply the absolute promise or oath of receiving intercession. Now this very much corroborates when we see these narrations from the Imam and Rasulullah telling us that if you take your salah lightly, you won't get any intercession from us either. So yes, love. But love comes with followership. This is the principle that the Quran lays out for us. I want to go into a little bit more depth on this name of Fatima. Again, I was told that mashallah, and I've seen it, this community is very wise, and I want to tap into this a little bit more. Usually we'd stop at this point and then go straight to practical time. But I want to keep a little bit on this analysis of what is going on. And if you'd like to join me, kindly offer salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A little bit more on this name Fatima, that if I'm not mistaken, Shaykh Al-Fan discussed and then Ayat al-Wahid discusses as well. We claim that Sayyidah Zahra is an intermediary of divine grace. We're going to prove this. Look at this level. In various traditions and narrations, we're told that her name is derived from which line of Quran? Inni wajjahtu wajhi lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal-ard hanifa. I have turned my face towards the one who has originated the heavens and the earth, upright. This name Fatima comes from that bit that you can see in green, fatara. Fatara, to cleave, to split, to sever something. Here it means the one who cleaves and breaks non-existence and brings about existence. Zahra's name is taken from this trait or name of Allah, which breaks non-existence and brings about existence. When in the creation is she therefore established? From non-existence to existence. I don't know if you guys are with me. From non-existence to existence. This is where her name is derived from. How do we prove this? In a lengthy narration, whilst the Prophet was with the Ahlul Bayt, he addresses Sayyida Zahra. وَشَقَّ لَكِ يَا فَاطِمَةً. And he derived for you, O Fatima, isman, a name, min asma'ihi, from his names. فَهُوَ الْفَاطِرُ وَأَنْتِ Fatima. He is al-Fatiru and you are Fatima. You're from that level, from that maqam. How do we prove that she's a divine intermediary in grace of Allah? It's from seeing where she comes from. And hence we're told Fatima alayhi salam plays a fundamental role within the creation and the origination of the heavens and the earth entirely. And she is the one that unites the entire Muhammadan light, the first of which was the divine creation, which precedes every single good. You've heard of that narration. Awwaluna Muhammad, awsatuna Muhammad, akhiruna Muhammad, wa kulluna Muhammad, fala tufarriqu baynana. What is this telling us? Fatima plays a fundamental role in the creation and the origination of the heavens of the earth. It is through her that this entire Muhammadan light combines around. Look further, Ayatul Wahid makes a very interesting point. He says, go and assess Mubahila. What is the positioning of the different people that are at Mubahila? Where is Sayyida Zahra alayhi salam? Is she on the side? No. Is she at the back? No. The front? No. The other side? No. She is at the center point of these five. Rasulullah makes his dua, but he says that dua is not complete until they say Ameen as well. The dua of Rasulullah is called towards, is required, the dua of Zahra alayhi salam as well. This is not by coincidence. Illa wahyun yuha. It's nothing except revelation. For you to think, who is this lady? What is she about? And why are we then told there's no match for her except Amir al-Mu'mineen? Look at this triangle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates. Assalamu alayka, yabna Rasulullah, yabna Amir al-Mu'mineen, yabna Fatima. You now have Hassan and Hussein. The maqam that these individuals have is derived from these individuals. But the Prophet goes further. He says, Ya Ali, walawla nahnu ma khalaqa Allahu Adam wala Hawa ولا الجنة ولا النار ولا السماء والأرض. Oh Ali, was it not for us, the Ahl al-Bayt, Allah would not have created Adam or Hawa or Jannah or Jahannam or the sky or the earth. ولا شمسا منيرا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا فلك يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وسلم. You need to picture this, my dear brothers and sisters. What we've been saying in the Masa'ib of the first 2 nights was to say, I'm going to give you some descriptions as to what's going on in Medina at that time. The thuggery that's going on. The mentality that's going on one side. And the absolute purity of Tawheed on the other side. No wonder this side wants to attack that house. It makes sense. Okay, there wasn't a perfect chain of narrators here. Look at the basics of hadith. That is not what you need to rely on to assert if this can be trusted on from a historical perspective. Look at the Qur'an, look at the evidences, look at what's going around this. Use real scholarship and see absolute shaitani traits against absolute godly traits. That's why they attack. That's why they try to cover it up. That's why they ban hadith. That's why they burn narrations. It makes sense. Sayyid Khomeini tells us, why is it that she has this role? Why is it that the Prophet comes out with this statement? He says, because the Ahlul Bayt are intermediaries, wasa'it, between Allah and the creation. Because they are the complete manifestation of the comprehensive mercy of Allah on earth. Allah places upon this earth al-Khalifa. At any given time, there must be one person who perfectly manifests the traits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of human ability. Hence, it makes sense to follow everything that they did, that they told us. Every single thing that they said is haqq. Every behavior is haqq. This is the kind of understanding that we then begin to derive. And then when we look towards the khutbah of Fatihiyya, and she says, وَطَاعَتَنَا نِظَامًا لِلْمِلَّةِ, submission to the Ahlul Bayt secures order for the entire nation. Yani, you don't just go and pick and choose which part of the Sharia you follow. You take it kamil, completely kamil, because that's what secures order for the nation. Anything that you miss out, you've missed out on perfection, you've missed out on purity. We are desperate for their guidance. This is the thing that we don't realize. They've given it to us out of their grace, and we pick and choose as if we know better. Bizarre. Oh, but it doesn't sit well with me, this part of Sayyid Sistani's Risala. This part of Agha Wahid's Risala doesn't make sense to me. It's not about it making sense to you. If you have intellectually said, I realize she is absolute purity, her father is absolute purity, and these individuals have gone through the most painstaking of journeys to derive the Sharia in the absence of our Imam, whatever says will be absolute purity, and I follow it, ta'ah, submissive. Do I know why I need to sacrifice this type of animal rather than this type of animal when I'm on Hajj? I haven't got a clue, but I just do taslim, because I know that they won't tell me anything otherwise. You and I don't need to rationalize every single fiqh ruling that is given to us. In fact, I go further. We cannot rationalize every single fiqh ruling that comes. We can rationalize the evidence that is brought and how they've arrived at the conclusion, but we don't know why a cow in this situation and a sheep in this situation. We don't know why. We'll find out those kind of answers potentially in the next life, or at the dhuhur of Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Because otherwise what happens? If you're not convinced about this purity, or if you start to pick and choose, what are you going to end up doing? You're going to start to follow some error-prone individuals. You go back to the isms, you go back to their non-tawheedi lens. And then you start to feel these frustrations. Then you start to feel ma'ishatan dhanka, this depressed life where you're not in a constant state of ubudiyyah of Allah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. All they're telling you is, do this and you're doing ibadah. The other guys are saying anything but ibadah. Don't do ibadah, don't have remembrance of Allah, no tranquility of the heart, ma'ishatan dhanka instead. So my dear brothers and sisters, I say this to myself before anyone else. When you find yourself frustrated with an element of your life, look deep. Look really deep. Let your partner, your wife, your husband tell you what is going wrong, because they usually are an annoying mirror for you, aren't they? Now, I'm not giving the best advert for marriage, but it's still worth it, I promise. It's good for spiritual growth. But you know most of the time it's because the salah is a bit dodgy. You know it's because you've got some dues unpaid. You know it's because you've got a constant ghiba issue on the side. It's these moments where we're not in a state of ubudiyyah, where we begin to find ourselves having this depression, this frustration, this anger, this anxiousness. But if all you're watching half the time is influencers and Netflix and so on, then it's no surprise that you're going to ditch the Ahlul Bayt at some point. Spend time with their words. Spend time with the Quran. Spend more time with that than anything else. If that had made sense, can you offer salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, therefore, we realize is the connection between Nubuwwah and Imam. She is the axis for this. She is the link. She is the means for these rising stars of Imamah that then come after her. It all comes from her. That's why the solution is Sayyidah Zahra. because she nurtured the forbearance of Hassan. And she nurtured the bravery of Hussein. This worship of Sajjad, this knowledge of Imam al-Baqir, this truthfulness of Imam al-Sadiq, this knowledge of Imam al-Kadhim, all of the proofs of Imam al-Ridha, this generosity of Imam al-Jawad, this purity of Imam al-Hadi, this dignity of al-Askari, and eventually the ultimate conclusion, which we'll discuss tomorrow, you'll see the perfect manifestation of mercy through al-Qa'im min Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. And hence Imam al-Sadiq tells us the night of destiny, Laylatul Qadr, is Fatima alayhi salam. Therefore, whoever recognizes Fatima in her true recognition has comprehended Laylatul Qadr. Indeed, she was named Fatima because no creation is capable of recognizing her. Alfi Shahr. We can't recognize that night. We cannot recognize Fatima. On the one hand, we have an amazing role model in Sayyidah Zahra. And on the other hand, you're probably thinking, how can I apply any of this to my life? The first thing that you can apply, set your benchmark to focus on her and her only, because her journey only takes you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But let's break it down a little bit more. We've discussed this transition of purity from mother to son, grandfather, grandson, father, son, between brothers, and so on. And I want to open up this discussion before we move to the Masa'ib. And this is something very practical for every single one of us in the community. Be you married, be you have children, be you looking to get married, be you have a child looking to get married, be you a grandparent, all of these will apply to at least one of us. How do we ensure that in our families, inspired by Ahlul Bayt, that we are passing on this purity? As to the best of our ability, of course. Firstly, we need to realize what happens if we are not nurturing this purity within our family. To do that, we need to look at this beautiful narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ كُلَّ عَمَلٍ نَبَاتٍ. To know that every single action, anything that you perform, is a plant. A plant? Why? وَكُلَّ نَبَاتٍ. And every single plant, لَا غِنَى بِهِ عَنِ الْمَاءِ. And every plant is not needless of water, i.e. every single plant needs water. Your action is like a plant. Your plant needs water. It needs something to do that. Your action needs something to do that action. And if the water of a plant is pure, barb, and pleasant, its growth will be pleasant and its fruits will be sweet. And if the water of a plant is dirty, is unpleasant, its growth will be unpleasant and its fruit will be bitter. Any action is like a plant. Whatever you water that plant, that action will happen. Whatever you're watering your family with, it will manifest in certain actions. If you are feeding your family sources of information that are not perfectly pure, expect imperfect actions. How is it that families still sit around TV screens watching things that are explicitly haram? How is that a thing still? Like, okay, fine, maybe we had an excuse when we went from 5 channels and it was just the news and entertainment finally released us and you could go to Sky One and whatever, and we were a bit all excited about it. But dude, it's been like 20, 30 years. We need to have woken up now. Why are we still sat as families in front of TV screens that are showing us terrible things? I'll give you an example. Harry Potter. Proper innocent, right? Parents very happy to let their kids watch Harry Potter, no issues. The 4th Harry Potter. Complete undertone of love stories. Complete undertone of love stories. MashaAllah, your child is there reading Harry Potter and you're like, yeah, look at my child, they're into their reading, it's really beautiful. What are they reading about? They're reading about Harry falling for this girl, Chinese girl, right? You haven't got a clue as a parent. But what they thinking? I'm at school, it's good to fall for a girl. This is what I'm learning from. Harry Potter's right here. I'm allowed to get Harry Potter pencil case as well. I'm allowed to dress up as Harry Potter on book day. This is all good, right? I'm allowed to dress up as a guy who's absolutely fine with falling for a Chinese girl. I've got nothing against Chinese people, but I'm just saying this is what happens in the story. I've got an issue with falling for the opposite gender before you're married. But this is the framing that we've given our children. So if you're not controlling this, if you're not mindful of this, what are you watering within your family? When are we going to wake up to this? Sure, you can still watch it. And when he's falling for her, then you can say, hey, give his kid a bit of a slap across the cheek and be like, you're not going to do this, right? Wake each other up. You can discuss it, right? Of course, haram is going to be around us. I'm not saying go live in a cave, but be aware of it. Be mindful of it, because we are copycats. This is what humans do. Therefore, if I spend more time reading that book rather than reading the narrations of Ahlul Bayt, I know what kind of watering I'm doing to myself. And if your child doesn't see you in Kitab al-Kafi, they're not going to open it either. If they don't see you reflecting on the verses of the Quran, they're not going to do it either. You're like, yeah, but I'm just reading the news on my phone. Yeah, I'm just reading my Instagram feed. What's the big deal, Dad? You've got your version, I've got my version. We've got to be really, really mindful for this. So we need to reflect as a community as a whole. This pureness, this purity, this tayyibness, is every single one of our community events truly tayyib? When I go out for dinner with other families, is it actually the right environment that I want to be replicating for my children? Do I want my child to say, yeah, but you said that we could go out with another family who are not mahram to us, and we could all sit on the same table, so long as we sat on different sides. I'm going out with my 3 male friends and my 3 female friends, and we're going to sit on different sides of the table. Why is that a problem now? What framing am I giving them? What's even more worrying is that we're now seeing a culture where open sin online has become completely okay. Completely okay. Normalized. And you know what's normalized it? Not the fact that the individual posts online. They make a mistake. Yani, that's their journey. May Allah guide them, inshallah. But my issue and our issue is that we then go and like that post. Let me give you a very real example, and I'm sorry to mention it, but I promise it comes from a place of love and nasiha. When one of our sisters has a tough moment and takes off a hijab, how many people from the community comment saying, you look beautiful? It's happening. You're complicit with them now. La, you're encouraging them. La, you are now manifesting the hadith that tells us at the end of time, good will be forbidden and evil will be enjoined. When I learned about that narration, I thought it could never happen. I'm actually the one doing it now. Okay. But don't worry, let me do Allahumma ajjili waliyik al-faraj at the same time. La, the verse of Quran that's given is you need to be the best community that enjoins good and forbids evil. Get off Instagram, bro. What are you doing on there? We've got to then look. Okay, fine. We need to rejig the family. How can I be inspired? How can I be inspired? How can I get this tayyibness back into my family? There's a beautiful story. And I'm not a big fan of stories, but when a good one comes, I like to tell them. And this one is about the Holy House. So Amir al-Mu'mineen is sat with Sayyidah Zainab next to Abu Fadl. The Imam says to Abu Fadl, pronounce the word one. Al-Abbas alayhi salam replies. He says, one. The Imam tells him, now I want you to pronounce two. Now you're thinking, mashallah, he's teaching him how to count. But look at the wisdom of Al-Abbas. Abbas says, I'm embarrassed to declare two with the tongue that is declared one. This Tawheedi lens is on a crazy level. Subhanallah. On hearing this, the narration says, Imam kisses Abbas's eyes. He then turns to Zainab alayhi salam. Zainab asks Amir al-Mu'mineen, Father, do you love us? Imam responds, of course I do. You're part of my flesh. Zainab is reported to reply, O Father, two loves cannot be contained in a believer's heart. Pure love must be for Allah alone, and the mercy is the due of the children. Clarity. Two eyes given because he understood one. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila, because she understood one. Why? Because the parents nurtured and poured good water into this household. Purity ran through them. Look at this, the way that they think. An exclusive heart for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then I go to my last 2 points before the Musab, and sorry for going over a little bit. To my young brothers and sisters looking to find a spouse. This is one of the things that people mentioned. Go and write down who you are. And to my parents who have children in that kind of age, I'm not talking 25, I'm talking younger. Protect them, look after them. Turn them into adults earlier, before the mistakes happen. Because the U-turn after those mistakes is very tough. Go and write down who you are. Yeah, I typed it on my phone. No, write it down. Who are you? Before you even talk about who I'm looking for, write down who am I. Write down what you want to achieve in the future. And then critically assess what you've written to think, how tawheedi is every single thing that I've written. Go and write down what kind of mother or father you would like to be for your children in the future. Then compare yourself. If I'm expecting my children to look up to a father, if I'm a man, to a father who prays on time and my salah is an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours late consistently, who on earth am I kidding? Allah told us in that verse of Quran, you try to deceive Allah, وَهُوَ خَادِعُهُمْ, but it's Allah that is actually outwitting you. And in that same breath, admit that if I'm now writing who I'm looking for, and that person that I'm writing is on spiritual stage 10 and I'm on spiritual stage 2, attraction doesn't quite work that way, my dear brother. You've got to change your game. She must wear hijab, she must have very modest clothing whilst you're wearing skinny jeans and still posting pictures of yourself topless at the gym, which has somehow become another new trend within Shi'i circles. Where is the ghira gone off the man? I don't see any narration saying Amir al-Mu'mineen would pose around town with tight tank tops but apparently this is now the way that we should be acting. And my parents were so stuck when it comes to income as well. And my God, please don't let this be a blocker for your children. Why? Because you're going against the wa'ad of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He promises, I'm going to sort you out. إِيَّكُونُمْ فُقَرَى أَيْ يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. From His fadl. The lesson of Sayyidina Zahra, a man by the name of Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, super materialistic man, inquires for Sayyidina Zahra. There was a queue, mashallah. There was a queue. He says to the Prophet, if you give Fatima to me in marriage, I'll make her a dowry of 100 camels with loads of precious metals from Egypt, along with 10,000 dinars in gold. The Prophet is said to have been so enraged by this meaningless proposal that he took a handful of gravel and he threw it towards Abdul Rahman. He said, you thought that I was a servant of money and this wealth that you're expressing, I take pride in your money and your wealth? Yet as fathers, when we then hear that someone is looking for our daughter, we're like, so they work at Google, right? I heard the software engineers get paid pretty well there. We've got it so wrong. Why? Because we're looking through the capitalist lens rather than that tawheedi lens. And remember this very, very, very vital hadith from our holy sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far and Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli. Kullu mawludin, every single newborn, yuladu ala fitra, is born upon this perfect nature inclined towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After that, it's over to the parents, it's over to the surroundings, it's over to the influences, it's over to how you're watering them. So sisters, look for a father of your children, don't look for a husband. Brothers, look for a mother of your children, don't look for a wife. Sisters, don't turn away a guy just because he hasn't got the cash that you're expecting, because trust me, I can tell you personal stories. Guys who are broke and now, mashallah, spiritually flying, not just rich. Brothers, don't just turn away a sister because of her beauty. Assess her before you see her picture. Assess her on how she writes. Assess her on the mother she wants to be. Assess her on how people speak about her. You'll see that what could have been, nah, I'm not so sure, now becomes, subhanallah, this is such an amazing person. When you see them, you'll feel something very different that you otherwise in your immature self would have swiped past, like Muzmatch, which I think is one of the most haram apps we've ever seen in recent history. marry for taqwa, marry for taqwa, marry for taqwa. And we can discuss Muzmatch for later. If I've hurt any nerves there, I have a lot of proof, and I work in the industry, not dating industry, of course, but in the technology industry. Marry for taqwa, marry for taqwa, marry for taqwa. And believe that the purity will transfer between the two of you, and it will transfer to your children. But when I talk about this newborn, and every single newborn being on this fitrah, especially during the days of Fatimiyyah, I can't help but think not about a newborn, but an unborn. Sallallahu alayki ya Sayyidati ya Mawlati Fatima يا بضعة الرسول يا حوراء يا بتول يا زهراء يا أم الحسين. Despite her soft and delicate heart, following the death of Rasulullah, she's reported to say, "Oh Allah, hasten my death to me." Oh Zahra, why did you want to leave this world so much? My dear brothers and sisters, for those of you who have seen a woman who is pregnant, for those of you who have carried a baby, for those of you who have witnessed your wife or your mother carry a baby or your sister carry a baby, I ask you, how do you help them when they try to stand and sit down? I ask you, how mindful do you see them when they try to move around? Very naturally, even in the first month or two, when there isn't even a bump, you see this lady, they kind of hold on to their stomach, and in that area, even though there's no bump, because they feel they're protecting something there. Yani, there's no relationship that can be compared to that of a mother and their child. No one on the world understands it. No one on the world understands what it was like to carry that child for 9 months. No one can see that relationship, especially when the child is yet to be born. This child is literally part of them, living with them, they're feeding them, they're sleeping with them, being nurtured by Allah together. You'd see the mother get out of the car very carefully, take a slow step, someone would help them up. They wouldn't sleep on their side in fear of maybe squashing that side of their body, harming their child. They definitely never engage in any physical activity as if they could hurt that baby within them. But I ask you, if a mother was to eventually stand up, and let's say just for now, if they were to gently just trip up and fall, I ask you, where do the hands of this lady go? Most of us, when we fall to the ground, if we're not pregnant, our hands go to support our hands on the floor. But when a mother falls, their instinct is split. Do I protect myself from the floor, or do I protect my baby inside? Now I ask you, O mu'mineen, O lovers of Zahra, tell me, what would you say if you saw grown men going towards the house of someone who is pregnant and calling out that we will burn this house down? Here is Zahra in Medina, pregnant with Muhsin. Here are the thugs of Medina approaching the house of Ali. They threaten to burn the house down. They say, do you not know who is behind this door? Even if you don't respect this lady, even if you are the companions of shaitan, then have some mercy for the purest lady of mankind that has ever seen. Have some mercy, even if you don't recognize that on a lady being pregnant. Oh Hussein, you are the Ibn of Fatima. I now understand how you had the fortitude to bear the loss of Ali al-Asghar, because you learnt it from your mother Fatima. You're the Ibn of your mother. You learned so many lessons from her. Perhaps one of those lessons was how to deal with the murder of a young child. Oh, people of Medina, are you so arrogant so much that you don't defend the daughter of Rasulullah? Oh, people of Karbala and Kufa, are you so arrogant that you don't defend the grandson of Rasulullah? Oh, door in Medina, don't fall. Oh, arrow in Karbala, don't fly. Oh, walls of Medina, stop the wall. Oh, dust in Karbala, stop the arrow. Oh, Fatima in Medina, I wish I was there to stop the door. Oh, Hussein in Karbala, I wish I was there to stop the arrow. Oh, Muhsin in Medina, be greeted by your grandfather Rasulullah in paradise. Oh, Ali al-Asghar in Karbala, be greeted by your uncle Muhsin in paradise. Oh, Hussein, I ask you, what was the heaviest body that you carried on the day of Ashura? Oh Allah, for the sake of Zahra, grant protection for all of the mothers who are pregnant. Ya Allah, for all of those young children who have lost their mothers in these atrocities in the last few months, and for all of those pregnant mothers who are doing their best to nurture their young unborn babies, grant them rizq, inshaAllah, grant them protection from the taghut, grant them protection from the bombardment that is around them, and we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow them to be amongst those who are able to find the intercession of Sayyidina Zahra alayhi salam. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين. Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. सीने में लिए रंजो अलम करबो बला का बाबा से है मिलने को चली उम्मे अबीहा आंखों से लहू बहता है पहलू है शिकस्ता या फातिमा ज़हरा या उम्मे अबीहा या फातिमा ज़हरा या उम्मे अबीहा या फातिमा या उम्मे अबीहा या फातिमा या फातिमा ज़हरा या फातिमा ज़हरा
یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ یا امت نے بہت آپ کو تر پایا ہے بی بی، ہر حق کے لیے آپ کو ترسایا ہے بی بی، غاصب نے جو دربار میں بلوایا ہے بی بی، غاصب نے جو دربار میں بلوایا ہے بی بی، اس دکھ سے لرزنے لگا خود عرش خدا کا، یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا ام شبیر کی دنیا میں ولادت سے بھی پہلے کہتی تھی یہ زہرا کہ بہت سہتی ہوں صدمے، بچہ یہ میرا کوکھ میں بے چین بہت ہے، بچہ یہ میرا کوکھ میں بے چین بہت ہے، بچہ میرا کہتا ہے کہ اماں میں ہوں پیاسا، یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ یا ام دنیا سے چلی کہتی ہوئی بنت پیغمبر، غم کرب و بلا کا ہے لیے یہ دل مضطر، آتا ہے تصور میں میرے شام کا منظر، آتا ہے تصور میں میرے شام کا منظر، اللہ رکھے زینب و کلثوم کا پردہ، یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا ام اب دل سے کمروار سے زہرا کو بلاؤ، پامال یہ مرقد پہ بہت عشق بہاؤ، اے منتقم کرب و بلا پردہ اٹھاؤ، اے منتقم کرب و بلا پردہ اٹھاؤ، محسن کی لحد پر گیا پہلو شکستہ، یا فاطمہ زہرا یا فاطمہ زہرا یا ابیہا یا فاطمہ یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، سر کو کٹا کے دین پہ، سر کو کٹا کے دین پہ، خود کربلا میں گر دیا تو نے حسین، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، اے خالق تیرا ممنون ہے، خالق تیرا ممنون ہے مرتضیٰ اور فاطمہ کے نور عین، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، یہ فاطمہ کی ہے دعا، یہ فاطمہ کی ہے دعا، مولا تیرے سب ماتمی کہتے رہے یا حسین 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 اللہم صلی علی محمد.
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیک یا فاطمۃ الزہرا، السلام علیک یا حدیث الکبریٰ، السلام علیک یا اصل مصطفیٰ، السلام علیک یا ابا عبداللہ الحسین وعلی اشرف المعصومین من ذریته علی بن حسین و محمد بن علی و جعفر محمد موسیٰ بن جعفر و علی بن موسیٰ محمد بن علی و علی بن محمد و حسن بن علی و حجت بن حسن عجل اللہ فرج و صح اللہ مہد و ظہورا. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ.